Welcome to the Fly Culture Podcast, bringing you interviews, reviews and fishing tips. Here's your host, Pete Tigers.
Welcome back to the Fly Culture Podcast, everyone. I'm going to start this one with a question, and I wonder if you'd answer it in the same way as me. What would you do if a friend contacts you and said he was heading down to Argentina to chase sea trout and there's a spare spot? Would you go? I'm standing here now on the banks of the Rio Gallegos, a fabulous sea trout river. It's a big river, probably 120 feet across. There's a real rugged beauty to the area. We're sort of standing in the river valley at the moment, a lot of hills, not a huge amount of trees. There's rheas that sort of kind of look like mini ostriches or emus even. There's a few sheep, there's foxes. I've seen a couple of hares as well on the other side, sort of going about their business and watching me cast. One of them stopped and had a look at me, realised I wasn't of any danger, probably not any danger to the sea trout either, and then carried on about its business. The thing here is that the wind blows, and when the wind blows, it blows really, really hard. But I'm lucky to be here with my friend Steve, who's got some experience of Argentina before, and it's pretty good to be down here, and I guess for you, good to be back, isn't it?
Fantastic to be back. I've not been down since the whole COVID situation and everything. I was here, I think 2 years ago actually, fishing different river system, but when Diego kindly give me the nod to come down again and have a fish before the guests arrive, I couldn't really turn it down, especially with all the doom and gloom in Britain at the moment. But so great to be back, and brilliant to fish a new river, different to the rivers I've fished before, sort of difficult to read, which is why the guides are essential down here. You've got to listen to what they're saying, even if you think you know better. I'm really looking forward to getting stuck into this. Fortunately, we've had a bit of rain on the Chilean side of Patagonia, which has brought the river up a little bit because it's been very low, and we're some way up the system here. Sort of, I think we're about 70 kilometres up from the ocean in the estuary, and obviously, like sea trout, everywhere you need some water in the river to get them to run. But there are reports of fish being taken lower down, and with this little rise in the river, hopefully a few fish will start arriving and settling over the next few days while we're here.
Let's keep our fingers crossed. So we're very fortunate to be fishing with Diego. Diego, your office is a pretty cool one, isn't it?
More or less. I'm really happy, and we are so fortunate to be part of this kind of dream. It's for many people that cannot be around or fishing or always dream about to catch fish or being in the fishing world. It is interesting, and so yes, we are super happy to be involved in this new business in the world. Rio Gallegos is, of course, one of the best sea trout rivers in the world. Probably one of the most interesting to fish. We fish most of the time with floating lines, small nymph. The amount and the size of the fish is just incredible, with an average of 10 pounds in sea trout.
That sounds absolutely fantastic. And this is Bella Sofia water. And you've got a bit of water here as well, haven't you?
We have only from Rio Gallegos, we have 65 kilometers of water, only for 6 rods, which is by far the most exclusive water or fishery for sea trout you can find in the world. And plus, on top of that, we have 22 kilometers of Gallegos Chico, one, in my opinion, the best spring creek in Patagonia. We will see it during the week. That combination makes Bella Sofia Lodge one of the top lodges in the world for fishing.
I'm really excited about seeing the water. And, we've been talking about the sea trout and the trout. How did the trout actually get down here? Because I'm guessing they're not native and they've been put in somewhere along the line.
Yes, actually they were introduced in the early 19th. The first eggs came from England, Scotland. They imported one English guy, John Goodall, saw the water and thought right away this might be really good for fishing. So he started a plan to bring fish all the way from UK and some places from the United States. So after a few years, he made it, and thanks to that, we are enjoying this now.
Fantastic. And of course, some of these fish are migratory, but some of them are resident as well. Is that correct?
Yes, it is. It is correct. Rio Gallegos has a lot of food. You will see along the week, like a lot of grass lines on the shores, rocks. We have a lot of insects in the water. A lot of kind of mayflies, stoneflies, caddisflies. A lot of different fish. I'm just watching the fish running upstream here. So yes, they have plenty of food, but in the lower part of the river there's not that many, so they tend to be hungry, and they go to the ocean, and they come later as a sea trout or sea brown trout, like this is the real name of them. So yeah, it is interesting, the combination to have resident fish and sea trout, and that make it interesting also because when the sea trout doesn't want to play with us, so we always have the brown trout, which is really, really cool, good sizes, good amount of fish. The average is more or less between 10 to 15 fish a day, talking about browns, and 1 to 3 in sea trout per day per angler, so it's a really good fishery.
That sounds fantastic. Well, I'm really, really excited to have a go at these fish.
¿Están grabando?
Vamos a grabar, sí.
Oh, nice.
So it's 10:30. There's still light in the air. And another beautiful pool that we've arrived at. Where are we, Diego?
We are in Flamingo, in the middle section of our water. Just arriving to it's one of the best holding places we have. We see some fish moving, splashing. We caught a couple, so we reserve this pool for the end of the day.
It looks a pretty good place to finish. Is it a favourite of you guys to fish too?
Probably one of our favourites. Yes, it is. Yeah.
Good. Well, we're going to give it a good go for last knockings, see what we can come up with. And we've had some chocolate. There's some beer, although we found out that it was non-alcoholic beer in there. But that doesn't matter when we're fishing as well. So that's fine. We've got some water. We've had some chocolate. We've got a beautiful pool. I think we need to fish this. Just walked upstream a little bit to watch Steve's rod hooped over. Looks like a nice fish.
Yeah, decent. Great take. Fishing on the molly flyers. Oh, hold on. He's going. He's running deep, and we're in quite a wide section of the river here. The light's nearly gone. It's about 11 p.m. This is a decent fish. Strong fight.
It's really hard to get it across to people, isn't it, what these fish are like when you're actually playing them, and how dogged, how strong, how powerful, and they've not been long in the river either, have they?
No, they're brutally strong. You know, when the head shakes and the runs are just, you can just feel every ounce of power that comes out of these fish. You know, they're quite a long way up the system already, and they're still chrome, so they got a lot of fight, and sort of the river's not that deep, and they sort of take off and do some great runs, as this one has just done. Right, we're getting it in close now. Oh, nice.
And that rod's gone over again. Steve, sort of what we've been doing is keeping, when the fish is getting in a little bit nearer, is keeping the line set, as I've learnt on this trip, and then stepping back and bringing the fish in. But it's a nice fish. Yeah, nice fish. Well, Steve, I think it's fair to say you are no longer a stranger to Rio Gallegos sea trout. That was pretty exciting, wasn't it? Lovely fish too.
Yeah, great. Well, we've put the effort in today with this 100km/h wind. Fished hard all day, some really good trout, and then the bonus at the end of sea trout, which is what we came for. Fishing. So it's obviously a few fish moving up. As we were going down the pool, they're running through, and see 4 or 5 fish like that in the space of 10 minutes really G's you on, and then the inevitable happens and tightens up, and it's not a trout anymore, it's a sea trout. And great fight, great to get one back in onto the bank and go away strong. Fish probably 7 pounders, so I thought not a monster, considering how big they get in here, but the night is young. Next pool, who knows, double figure. So yeah, great.
And the pool is a really, really long one, isn't it? It's a perfect one to fish down. Probably, how long do you think? 200, 300, 400 feet long?
Yeah, it's got to be. Yeah, probably more. More fishable water, and it's a really nice pool to fish. Actually, a really good steady flow, lovely swing on the fly. If this was the UK, I think using a surface fly down through this at night would be fantastic. But maybe we'll try that another evening when the wind dies down, because obviously it's still blowing a gale here. But lovely long pool, and I'm sure we'll fish this one again before the end of the week.
Here's to that. As the trip progresses, you sort of relax into a rhythm, and it may be from the time we wake up to walking up for breakfast, everything else that goes with it. But also from a fishing point of view, you're so excited that you forget things, or you do things differently, or whatever that may be. And I was fishing this morning, and I was thinking about my casting a little bit, and played with a few things that I thought about overnight. And it's funny how these things play out and work really, really well. And, I've been thinking about the anchor point on my casting, and perhaps to lift my hands up a little bit higher, because I'm casting a lot further than I normally do at home. And I've been sort of thinking about that a great deal. And it's a really nice thing that you enjoy the first couple of days of the excitement, and then you start to think a little bit more about what you're doing, why you're doing it, and how you're doing it, and perhaps how you can improve it. And that's been great for me this morning. I've really enjoyed thinking about it. So I've said before on podcasts, when you're bone fishing and you're at the front of the boat and you're a trout fisherman, you say to yourself the whole time, or I get people to say, don't strike, don't strike, don't strike, as they retrieve the fly to a bonefish. And this one I've been snake rolling and concentrating on lifting my hands up. So as I go to set my D and get everything ready there, I just say hands up, hands up. And that's worked really well for me this morning. Diego reckons that we've had a little bit of rain somewhere, and the river's just coming up. We've seen some sea trout, and it looks like they're running the river more than being actually in the pools and staying static in the pools. But we were chatting on the way down, and I said, where we are, we're in the back of nowhere, so humans' intervention is minimal, and so the fish can go about doing things that they want to do naturally without man intervening. But Diego, how have you found over the time that you've been guiding that the runs of sea trout, how have they been comparable to when you first started?
Mainly depends on the systems. Some of the lodges or fishing operations, they take the fishing pressure in count, so they keep the number of anglers low. So in some of the cases, the number of fish running are getting higher every year. For example, when we run irrigation until last season, we've been with an average of 200 fish a year or per season. And after 6 years working with biologists and putting the fishing pressure lower, they used to work with 8 anglers. We only run it with 4 per week. So the catching statistic, of course, goes up really, really high. The last season we caught 478 sea trout in the same period of time that the other operations, they caught only 200. We don't know what exactly happened, but we've been sure that during the winter time nobody was there or netting. They used to put some nets in the past, so we stopped that. And following the biologist's suggestion, we take cattle out of the places where the sea trout might, we expect to, they spawn, which is very, very important in some part of the world. You know, the cattle, they goes into the water to drink water and they go over the beds. No, so we take a lot of advice from him. So we changed that, and the numbers were much, much better. And in some other cases, like I couldn't say the name, but Rio Grande, for example, the number of anglers is growing up every year. So the amount of fish is more or less the same, and the catches is split in the anglers. So years ago, we used to have an average when I started to guide. Sessions with 10 fish were usual. That's with 2 rods, so 5, 6, 4 per rod per afternoon session were normal. Now the average catch is around between 10 to 12 per rod per week. And I remember sessions with 30, 40 fish, and it doesn't happen now. Of course, the number of anglers in that moment were only 2 lodges, maybe 30 rods in the water every day. Now we have 150 rods every day.
Wow, and that sort of goes along with what you've been saying this morning about how spooky the fish actually are. So if you've got a lot of anglers on the river, then the fish are going to be more wary or more spooky, and fewer are actually caught. So that's going to feed itself in the end, isn't it? Because the lodge, if they're getting more people in, that's great for them. But if the anglers aren't going to catch as many fish, they're probably going to look elsewhere, aren't they?
Exactly. That's something that we've been talking a lot with with lodge owners or ranch owners. That of course is a business for them, but we don't know this for money. With this, we do this for passion because we are passionate about this. So every time I talk with them or try to talk with them, I say, okay, it is better for the future, for the system, for the business even, because you can charge maybe a bit more and have a better fishing operation or more exclusive fishing operation. And it's something that is changing also in the market. I'm receiving anglers that they are asking, okay, I want to go, but how many anglers do you have? We be in the lodge. And as soon as you say 4, 6, they are really, really happy with that. Just less and less anglers and people want to deal with 12, 20 people in the same place and fish in the same water. So yeah, it's something that it should change in the future for the well of the business and the fish. Yeah.
And that's great to hear. And also you mentioned about, like I say, pollution as we know it isn't affecting things, but you've obviously identified that cattle were a problem and you addressed that really quickly. And I know before when we were driving down, you said about netting in the river, and that had quite an impact. You spoke and the nets stopped netting, and that had a big impact on runs. And can you give me an idea of how many were being caught when it was being netted, and then when the nets were taken off? What impact did that have on sea trout numbers of anglers catching them?
Probably I cannot give you exactly the numbers, but I have an idea about how many we used to catch in some rivers. For example, Iwan River or San Pablo River. There's 2 small rivers we have in southern here in Tierra del Fuego or in Patagonia. They used to be really, really good size sea trout. One of the rivers used to have an average of 12 pounds. That's huge fish. That's an average. And the other one used to have a 16-pound average fish. Wow. So that's amazing fisheries. But then with the time, the rivers are far away. There's no control. And with the time, the people start to fish in that places with nets. And of course, that was the end of the rivers. We are trying now to recover one of those, trying to deal with the fishermen, with the anglers, with the government too. Some of the people in the government, they are not quite interested on the sea trout because it's an introduced fish. So anyway, we've been dealing with that, but the numbers in the past were a lot bigger. And for example, in the ocean, that we have exactly the numbers. We've been increasing the number of fish from 3,000. That was the number that we expect to have in the past, over to 20,000 now. Jesus. So it's incredible number of fish, taking in account this small system. So imagine Rio Grande or Gallegos River, where we are now. There's a huge, massive rivers.
That's absolutely extraordinary, and it's the sort of place where I'm fishing, and I suppose it's because it's new. I don't know where I am, but every cast, I always feel as though there's a chance. And we've seen, as I said, some fish running the river this morning, so they're probably not as interested in the flies, but you never know. And that's been the wonderful thing about this. And even, there's these wonderful moments where the line goes. And Steve showed me a photo, actually, of a beautiful trout that he caught. And the trout fishing in the main river, they're byproducts of the fish that we're targeting at the moment, but they're a wonderful byproduct. And how big was that one, do you reckon, that you caught this morning, Steve?
I would say it was a good 6 pounds. It's brown trout, and it was a beautiful colour as well. So worth a photo, that one, because we're catching a lot of them, and we're just... not being flippant, but we're after sea trout, and we're catching 4 or 5 pound brown trout and pulling them in, unhooking them, letting them go without taking pictures. But anywhere else, it's like a trophy fish. It's crazy.
Yeah, they're fish of a lifetime and wonderful. And I caught one this morning, and I said to Diego, who was with me, and I said, I love you to the fish, but you're not. It's your cousin I'm really after at the moment, but they're a wonderful byproduct, and every single one has been, I've taken the opportunity to look at and how different they look like. But as Steve says, they're fish of a lifetime if you're targeting them, and we've been lucky to do that as well. So, we've enjoyed those as well. But yeah, it's fascinating to hear about how despite, because I thought impact on the river would be minimal by human, but the slightest little thing they're leaping on really, really quickly before, I guess where we are in the UK, in some cases it almost feels as though it's too little too late, whereas they're acting really quickly and decisively and affecting change. And before we sort of switched this on earlier this morning, we were talking about it, and if these fish are given half a chance, they'll do their best to run these rivers. So, yeah, it'll be interesting to see how things play out in the UK in the future, in the near future and the far future too. So we were eating a sandwich, and we'd seen fish move against the far bank, and Steve still had a little bit of sandwich left, and very gallantly, very kindly and very generously offered me the shot. And I did. The moment I started casting, everything went quiet. He then went in behind me a tiny bit further upstream and then hooked a fish. So I think there is something about karma, isn't there, and generosity, and it certainly paid off. But you've certainly had a fantastic evening. Do you want to tell us a little bit about it?
Yeah, it's been eventful. We, as I say, we came out, got to the river around 7ish, I guess, and came to a couple of pools that we'd fished at the start of the week where we've actually caught fish. So it's always good to come back to a familiar pool, knowing that you can catch them in there, and seeing them when we were having a picnic, seeing them move is a good incentive. So yeah, so we dropped in. You obviously fished the lower section. I went up to 50 yards above, I guess, with the sunray shadow on. Had a few casts and I had a big boil at it, and it didn't connect. So I made the same cast and give it a little bit more speed on the strip, and wallop had a really lovely take, good fight, and a fish, really, really fat fish actually. And I think we weighed it in as about 11.5 pounds, which is fantastic. Unfortunately, the first pool that we stopped at, Canyon, what's it called? Canyon Verde, the green Canyon pool. That was the pool. We'd also had fish from there as well. So our first run down through, once again fished it normally down, then reverted to the Sunray Shadow, and had another tremendous take, fantastic fight, and a fish we think is probably about 16 pounds. So 2 really, really good sea trout this evening. So delighted with that.
And that was really, really nicely done. And, we always sort of raise a clenched fish in excitement when somebody's playing a fish or they've just landed it, which is really, really cool. But when Steve hooked the bigger fish, I certainly reeled in very, very quickly. And it's really nice to share these moments with people when the fish goes into the net and see these sorts of things, and that's all part of it. And even now we're sort of sitting, resting the pool, and we're just sitting here talking stuff, shooting the shit really, and it's been really cool. To me, this is part of it as well. The fish and being where we are, we're extremely fortunate to be here, but the little moments aside from the fishing as well are really, really cool too. And guys have seen a fish just a little bit further downstream. They're gesticulating around me and I can see them excited. It sounds like it's a big one as well. So we're just sort of, as I said, waiting for the light to come off the water now, get darker, and then we're going to have another little bit of a go. Do you think you got another one in you today?
I think I could manage another one if the opportunity arises, for sure. Yeah, I think this is how many days now. I sort of lose track of what day it is, but I think this is our 4th day of fishing, and we've sort of relaxed into it a bit now. And when I sort of first arrive, you feel like a kid in a sweet shop. You just can't wait, and everything's like, right, let's go. But now we've sort of settled down. We've caught a few fish, relaxed a bit, and I'm really enjoying the fishing this evening. Nice steady pools to fish, and just going about it methodically rather than just jumping around. So yeah, but tonight definitely we've got another chance of a fish, so hopefully we get to see another one captured.
Nicely done and superbly fished, mate. So, as you probably gathered, the river is of a good size. It's double-handed rod territory, and I've been using a 12'6", 7/8 weight, and it's a rod by a company I admire greatly called Cadence. And the reason for that is that if you spend more than £50 with them, so it's probably going to be a rod, reel or line, they buy a fishing pole for a kid to go fishing with. So they're trying their utmost to introduce youngsters into fishing. So that's good enough reason in itself. The rods, the double-handers, are designed by Ian Gordon, who needs no introduction when it comes to salmon fishing, casting, and designing rods as well. So that's a good enough reason. And I kind of like this rod as well, because what you can buy is a second section that goes just above the handle, that as it comes is a more traditional action of a spey rod, but the other section will stiffen the rod up a little bit. And I found that I've been using that stiffer sections worked really, really well for me, and I've really enjoyed it. I started with the traditional one, and I've played around with lines as I always do, and I've found the sort of setup that I'm really enjoying using. Also, from a price point, they're kind of interesting as well, because they only sell direct. That a double-handed rod comes in at around 460 quid, which seems to me pretty good value for money, and it has Ian behind it. And they also do trout rods as well, and I think I'm going to be buying for my salmon fishing at home a 9'9" 8-weight. I thought that would work really well for the river that I fish. And the trout rods, again, designed by Stevie Munn, who again needs no introduction at all, really. Hugely experienced trout angler in many, many disciplines, and a lot of thought and hard work have gone into them. And again, they're really great value for money as well. So I kind of like where they are with this and what they're trying to do, and it's a little bit different and trying to give something back. One of the things is that I always feel in these situations that the fish chooses you, and Diego put us in a really, really nice long pool. He said there was a deep channel in the middle of it. And so it was nice for me. We've had a long day's fishing. My arm's a little bit sore and was a little bit sore. And I thought, well, let's try just roll casting it out, see how far we can get it. And it was by roll cast standards, an okay distance. Obviously far enough to be in the right spot, and dead drifting a fly, and the fish took, and some fish it was too, and really the fights. And I know I was talking to Steve earlier about it, that how dogged they are, how strong they are, how they've not been in the river system long, how bright, and when you get to touch, and for me, touching these fish, there's a connection when you hook it and when you're playing it, and then finally if you're lucky enough to get it in, that I feel a deep connection with that fish for just a few seconds. And it was a lovely fish, and pretty strong one, wasn't it? You've seen so much on the river, and a beautiful fish, and I'm thrilled with how fit it was, how beautiful, but pretty strong fish, huh?
It was a really nice fight. The take was amazing too. The water was explode.
Yeah.
So we were all watching the show. It was a classic reaction of a fresh fish coming into the system, and the fight too. And as you could see, it was a solid fish. That's one of the most important part or characteristic of the fish. They are solid. You cannot hold it sometimes. The release was fantastic too. It took off like a shit. So it was really, really nice fish. It took a nice big rubber leg on the dead drift, long leader. It is interesting too how they go up in the surface, even when the sea trout doesn't like to move too much close to the surface of the water. That fish moves really, really nice. We are fishing with only floating lines, bellies, and an intermediate clear tip. So that's part of the show too. To see the take, to see the water moving when they jump, it's interesting. It is, yes.
What do you think it weighed?
It was we measured it and we estimate the weight in 15 pounds. So quite nice fish.
That's amazing. I doubt I'll ever beat that, certainly in my part of the world. But like you say, that seeing the release of the fish as well, the water, and we play them, we're fishing 20-pound tippet, and we play them as hard as we possibly can to get them in, to release them. But like Diego says, that the water explodes when you release them. They're absolutely fantastic. A really good tip he gave me actually is worth mentioning, that he said when you're holding the fish, and we kept the fish in the water the whole time, obviously, but he said have it pointing towards the bank so that it can't see the deeper water. And I think that's a fantastic tip. And if you're lucky enough to catch a nice sized fish, be it a sea trout, a salmon, or a brown trout as well, that I think that's a great tip that's worth trying. And you heard that from Diego down here in Patagonia. So great tip, and thanks for both of you for great guiding. And it's not sort of you can see that you're thinking about everything, the fly changes, the tips, the whole thing, isn't it, that you're consistently observing situations and everything else. And even there, it's the end of the day, and I've had a wonderful fish, and I'm not fishing as well, and I'm feeling a little bit tired out. But you spot everything, so that's a bit short. Pull it in and cast it again, and all those things. You're always looking to make changes the whole time, aren't you?
Yeah, that's a super important when you fish for sea trout or Atlantic salmon, sometimes steelhead too. It is super important just to fish and think all the time. It makes the difference. All the changes we made, all the movements we made, how we choose the pools, or how we chose the pool, because of the wind or the currents, or if they are moving or they are staying. Now we start today, and yesterday afternoon we start to fish the holding places. Before that, we were just fishing runs because they were running. So everything is about to think. Fishing sometimes, the salmon anglers, they tend to be more automatic. So with sea trout or brown trout, it is very or highly recommended to think every single time, every single strip. And also in this part of the world, if you vary it, if you change a lot the speed, the depth, the size, the angle, that really helps a lot.
Yeah, I've taken a lot from this that I'm going to take back to my salmon fishing as well. And yeah, like you say, the angles, and I do change those as well. But I was really, because it's water I don't know, I think about it a whole lot more. So I'm concentrating on every aspect of the cast, everything that I can to make sure that I give myself the best chance. And if it's, if it's windy or it's really super blowy, I'll just concentrate on getting that a nice long roll cast right out to cover the water, and then build back up into my cast. The angles, as Diego says, the speed, the slow strip, faster strip, all those sorts of things I'm thinking about a whole lot more, thanks to the guys telling me about it, and it's certainly something I'm going to take home with me. So thank you for that.
My pleasure. It's why we do this. It's a help from us. Just that.
Perfect. So we're sitting on the bank resting in the pool for a bit. It's 10 o'clock at night, and it got me thinking that the guys have stayed out with us. We've been getting up at 6 o'clock in the morning, fishing hard, having a bite to eat, having a quick rest, and then out till midnight most nights. And that's a proper job, a really proper job. And as you well know, having been a guide myself, I kept slightly more easier hours. And there's also the aspect of socialising as well. So there isn't really ever a rest for the guys, and it's a full-on season. It's not like they're doing a day and then having a few days off and then doing a day. This is every single day, loading the truck, unloading the truck, getting flies ready, getting lunch ready, the whole lot. So it's really not a walk in the park, but Diego's been doing this over 25 years now, so I'm guessing you probably enjoy this still, don't you?
I still enjoying this, and I'm gonna still doing if I enjoy it. It's something that you cannot do for money. It's a passion, and you can be passionate about it. There's no other way to spend so much hours outside. Of course, we are next to the river, fishing, enjoying it, great people. So it is nice, but yes, you have to be really, really passionate about. As you said, they are very long days. We have double seasons. We've been guiding here. We guide here for sea trout during the summer, our summer time. Then we move up north to Santa Fe province, where we have a Golden Dorado lodge. So we guide there too. So it is a fantastic lifestyle, and it's not a job. It's a kind of lifestyle more than a job.
I think you summed that up perfectly, actually. And one of the things that you said there were, it's the enthusiasm that runs through quite deeply. And, you can easily, this is, the fish aren't easy. They don't give themselves up. But if you do the things right and if you listen to what the guys are saying, then you're in with a really, really good chance. And it could be easy that you could just sort of tie on a fly and tell the client to throw it out there, let it swing round and see what happens. But both Diego and Marcelo are consistently, right, change the fly, do this, go a bit squarer. Have you thought about where your anchor on your spay cast is landing? All those sorts of things have shone through for me. And, you can't fake stuff like that. And every little sort of tip that's being passed on, think about how you're wading in, everything else. They want you to catch the fish. And they'll do everything in their power to actually do that. So you're 25 plus years into this. How did you actually get into being a guide? Did you always want to be a guide? Was it something that you thought you wanted to be from a young age?
Actually, yes, but I didn't knew that it was a kind of shop that it was calling like a guide, or fishing guide or whatever. I crossed my path with an angler in Grande River in Tierra del Fuego, and I saw him. I suggest him to change the fly because I grew up there. My father was working next to in the water plant next to the river, so I grew up there fishing alone since I've been like 8-9 years old, like my boys doing now. So in that time, I think I realized that I could do something with that, but I never thought it was a job, properly job, and my father never thought either. So he forced me or pushed me to to study in the university. So I became a physical education teacher, and I did some work with that. But this is my main job. Anyway, so I start to study, get in contact with people that it was in the fishing world, and I realized that I was next to Maria Vegetti Lodge, which was the most famous lodge. It is one of the most famous lodges for this fishery, for this fishing. So I start to contact people. I start to go out as an assistant, and then at the age of 17, I get hired by a lodge in the Chilean side in the same Rio Grande. So that was the beginning of all. And after that, I start to study and get some courses. These short courses in Tierra del Fuego. There is not a kind of degree or something that you can do it. There is in northern Patagonia. They are really, really good ones. Marcela, actually, she's graduated from that school. So I never received any kind of classic instructions or how to be or how to be a guide. I was learning, making mistakes along the path, as like everyone. So that's the way I start. Then I start to guide, and then after the guide, I became a head guide, and then I became a manager, and I am owning half of one of the lodges in northern Patagonia. A partner now of the Bella Sofia Lodge. So yes, it was a long path, but I feel like it was very short.
Time flies when you're having a lot of fun. And, I've seen you and watched you casting as well, and your casting's absolutely spot on as well. I think it's absolutely fantastic. Has that been a fun process? And I know we were talking the other night, and you were saying you like to go out and practice casting still after all this time. That's an important part for you, and it enables you to help people, because conditions here aren't easy, are they, with the wind and everything else? And if you're not that experienced or know how to deal with these conditions, it needs somebody like you guys to be able to help people. But casting is a fun aspect for you as a side for your job as well.
It is, and really enjoyed it really much. And my life changed at the beginning. I started to learn spy casting with one friend in common. We have videos from Simon Gaisworth. So I was almost memorizing every single video, and I tried to practice in Rio Grande with the windy conditions we used to have there. Anyway, I became a casting instructor by the hand of Henrik Mortensen from Denmark. So he hired me as an ambassador of the company. So from that, I started to develop my casting schedules and skills and details. So we talk a lot with him every time. We spend 15 days together fishing and casting too. So anyway, it's a different style, but that we used to do now. You saw the gear we have now is a bit different than the classic old-style spey rods. But anyway, that's spey rods, the classic ones, long lines. They were the beginning of all. They give me the timing, the small details, the anchor point. It's so many different things that we've been talking along the week that you have to take in account. And it's super important when you're guiding, because just telling them, okay, just put your anchor point just a little bit into your bag, that changed the angler's life, because they can cast. And if you cannot control the casting here, you could have a really bad time. But anyway, so knowing all this small detail help us to be a better guide and to give to the anglers better time in the water.
Absolutely, and it's been an absolute pleasure to fish with both of you. It's like you say, you can't fake passion, I don't think, and it's been great. And over the years, I've fished with crappy guides and I've fished with great guides, and you guys certainly go into the latter, and it's been an absolute pleasure to be able to fish with you. I'm by no means an expert, but conditions just feel right now. It's close. There's some wind. It's overcast. We fished a pool this morning, and we're following. I think Diego's got a hunch, and we're heading back to a pool called Pedro, funnily enough, and we're going to give that a go again. Yep. Nothing prepares you for the take, and I'm hanging on to a fish right now it was probably 3 or 4 casts. The guys had spotted. The pool is called Pedro's, which is kind of apt for me. Diego said, throw it out, strip it, probably 3 strips, and I'm attached to a sea trout. They're incredibly strong fish. The wind is howling here, the head is thumping. I'm doing everything I can to keep tight with the fish. He's bumping, the rod's right over at the moment. It's sort of starting to run downstream a little bit now, but I'm still attached, and you never know if we get really, really lucky. What's the plan, Diego? What are we going to do?
We need to, in this kind of places, it's not difficult to put the fish on the land, so we beach them mainly. So now you have a good distance, just walk back only. It's always better to have a good distance between the fish and the angler, just to don't spook them.
Right, let's see what we can do. So I've walked back probably 10, I can see the fish now.
Nice young sea trout, yeah, probably 3-4 pounds.
Yep, lovely. Leo's
let's
there.
Keep walking back. That's good. I'm gonna take it.
There we go. And that's the fish in. It's the last day. And it's funny, you slip into a really nice routine. You understand the rhythm of the day. Starts with good coffee, scrambled egg and bacon, and then we go hit the river. And as soon as you slip into that nice rhythm, it's almost time to go home again. And say you never stop learning, and this trip has been a perfect example for that. The conditions are more extreme than we'd normally face. So you have to think about everything. Everything goes under the microscope, and if you don't get something right, you're going to pay for it pretty quickly. So even if it's been down to the incredibly spooky fish the sea trout that I've been chasing, my approach, getting into the water, thinking about how much gravel I'm moving, how much water am I pushing as I'm wading out. And then, of course, the wind. You can't come down here and not mention the wind. And that makes me think about the cast that I make, how the wind's going to affect the line going out, and also selecting the cast. So in some cases, something like a continual motion cast, like a snake roll, allows me to keep that line moving, make my D-loop and hit it straight out. That gives me a little bit more time. Plus, if I've got heavy flies on as well. And so it's made me think about all those things. And these things I can take back with me so that when the salmon season's underway, I'll think about how I'm approaching the water, because I'm guilty of it, as I'm sure many of us are, of doing what we always do. But then just sometimes the little changes that you can make or think about, and that's been the case down here, that I've had to think about every single little cast that I make. How am I drifting the flies? Am I imparting life into them? Is it a slow movement? Is it a figure of 8? Is it short strips or a strip every now and again? And all those things I'm going to take with me. And thinking about, as I said, the approach as well, how I'm going to get into the water, particularly when I know water really well in the spot that I fish a lot of the time, that you're sort of almost on automatic pilot. And I'm going to think about those things a whole lot more when I get to my home water. Diego, it's been such a pleasure fishing with you. If people want to see some photographs of the places that you fish, where you take people fishing and those beautiful fish, how can they find you?
We have two social media accounts. One is for Bella Sofia Lodge. We can find it like that, just Bella Sofia Lodge. And my personal account is Castillo Diego. So you can find there all the places and pictures, and it's a good way to be in contact with the people who want to know more about our fisheries or about sea trout fishing or whatever they want to know about us.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. I cannot tell you how much I've enjoyed this trip.
It's a great pleasure for us to receive you guys and to have the chance to watch or introduce you to this part of the world, and these fisheries and the places and the people who is living here and fishing here.
I've read so much, I've heard so much, and I can tell you it's all true. Thank you so much for listening to the Fly Culture podcast.
The Fly Culture podcast is brought to you in association with Fly Culture, a quarterly print magazine. For more information, please visit flyculturemag.com. You can also find Fly Culture on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter.